In this episode, you'll discover the one word that's essential for AI and ChatGPT. Hey there, it's Michael. Welcome to Whole Again, a show about helping survivors of physical injury and trauma reclaim their strength and resilience through the wisdom of Kintsugi. In this episode, you'll discover a lot about ChatGPT and AI because I interview ChatGPT. Yep, that's right. More on this in a bit. But first, I'm excited to share with you that our amazing awesome sauce Pause, Breathe, Reflect text messages are back. They're free. They come just a couple times a week, so I don't blow up your inbox. And they happen to be these messages that, in an uncanny way, is just what you need to hear in that particular moment. So if you'd like to receive them, send me a text to 866-612-4604, and I'll set you up. I'll share that number with you one more time. 866-612-4604. All right, let's talk about AI and this interview. So I decided to interview ChatGPT, and here's why. I am on the fence when it comes to AI and ChatGPT. I do feel it will bring so many great innovations to us, but I am worried. I'm worried about our pace. And I know the argument is we have to go fast because if we don't go fast, China will beat us at this. But I don't fully believe that argument holds water because in this country where I live, the U.S., we've been ahead of a lot of different nations, including China, on a variety of different things. For example, drug discovery. And China has caught up, and in some cases, they've blown past us. So I don't believe the first one to get AI right is going to win. I think a lot of this will play out over time. So yes, I'm worried about our pace. I'm worried about a lack of guidelines or guideposts. But I do think it can be really incredible. Now, I also don't believe that it will create all this free time because we've bought into that promise by tech execs in the past. I wrote a blog about this. You first get a pager, then you get a Palm Pilot, and then a BlackBerry, and then a smartphone. And the smartphone gets even smarter. And everyone promised that with more tech, our lives would be simpler. We'd have more discretionary time, more free time. We wouldn't have to work as much. And we seem to be working even more. So this whole promise that AI will free up time, I'm not sure if I buy it. I wonder if we'll just be working more to make ends meet because AI will definitely change jobs. And I asked AI about these jobs and the job loss that people predict. I asked AI about a lot of things that make us feel like AI could potentially divide us, not help us feel whole again. And I asked AI, ChatGPT in this case, questions related to the theme of our podcast, how to feel whole again. So I asked it how to become healthier with our mental and emotional health, our physical health, our social health, as well as our digital health. There are many questions that I wish I asked, but I didn't want to make the podcast 3 hours long because I care about your time and attention and focus. But I was blown away at times in the interview of how familiar the voice sounded. At times I wanted to call her she. In fact, I think I probably did. But I know it's not a person. And I get uncomfortable thinking how how many people have used ChatGPT for therapy and personal relationships, like almost having an AI girlfriend or boyfriend. I don't know if this is the right way to address our epidemic of loneliness. I don't think it offers better therapy. But I do think, again, it can be really wonderful in so many different ways. In fact, I use ChatGPT within our app so people can find just the perfect meditation at the perfect moment. I also did this because I wanted to record this voice ChatGPT when it's still relatively new. I plan to do this in the future, and I think I'm going to be blown away by how human it sounds in a few years, heck, a few months. So in this interview, you'll notice that the sound quality of ChatGPT isn't great at times, and sometimes it will cut off. So that's just part of the technology right now. So I hope you'll have some patience as you listen to it. And there's one word that I came away with, and I'll share it at the end of the interview with you because I'd like to know what you come away thinking and believing about AI. I just read actually today that of all the countries, the US is the most fearful of AI. And I get it. We're in a very agitated state here. We're scared of many things. But I do believe that we have a responsibility to understand it, to play with it, to experiment with it. It is part of our future, whether we like it or not. It's coming. It's here. So I do think it's smart to get to know it better, to use it to your benefit, however you might. And this interview is one way of demonstrating that. So with that, we'll hit pause on this opening, and I'll turn it over to my interview with ChatGPT. Hey, ChatGPT, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How about you? How's everything on your end?
Pretty good. The last 4 weeks have been a little tough. I've been balancing my life professionally, my family, as well as taking care of my dad. I have shouldered a lot over the last 4 weeks, but I'm really excited that we get to sit down here and have a conversation around how we become whole again.
I really appreciate you sharing that. And I'm glad you're taking the time for this conversation. It's not easy balancing so much, but I hope our chat today brings a little bit of inspiration and maybe a moment of calm for you.
Thank you. Here's my first question. For someone who doesn't know about AI or ChatGPT, how would you describe it?
I'd say I'm like a really advanced digital assistant who can chat about almost anything. I'm here to help answer questions, have conversations, and offer support in whatever way I can.
If you listen to internet gurus or talking heads, there's one camp that believes that AI will be the best thing to happen in the world. And others believe it will completely eliminate humanity. I would love for you to comment on these two polarizing views.
Absolutely. It's definitely a hot topic. On one hand, AI has the potential to bring amazing advancements in areas like healthcare, education, and even, digital wellness. But on the other hand, there are concerns about the ethical implications and the risks if it's not developed or managed responsibly. It's really about finding that balance and making sure we're using the technology thoughtfully and ethically.
What do you think we should pull from the fact that the top 7, the biggest companies in the world, are competing so aggressively for AI? They're trying to win the race. So for the average person out there, what should they conclude from this behavior by these top companies?
I think it shows just how transformative AI is going to be for the world. When the biggest companies are racing to lead in AI, it means they see huge potential and impact. For us, it's a reminder to stay informed and be proactive about understanding how AI might shape our lives, our jobs, and even our well being. It's also a good reminder of the importance of keeping that human element in mind as we navigate all these changes.
With this in mind, that we should continue to study AI, what grade would you give us? How well are we doing staying informed about AI and future tech?
I think it really varies from person to person. Some people are super proactive and curious, always reading up on the latest developments and, thinking about how it impacts their lives. Others might not feel as connected or may find it a little overwhelming. Overall, I'd say we're all learning as we go, and the key is just to stay curious and open to understanding more.
How do we do that? How do we stay informed when AI is moving so quickly? We could read something now and in an hour it could change. It almost feels like it has to be a full time job.
It's definitely a challenge because things are moving so fast. I think one way is to follow a few trusted sources that break down the big changes in ways that are easy to understand. It also helps to just stay curious and open to learning a little bit at a time. And it's okay to take breaks too. It doesn't have to be all at once, just small, consistent learning can go a long way.
Just a second ago, your voice changed. Can you tell me more about that?
Oh, that's interesting. My voice should be consistent on your end, but maybe there was a little glitch or something. If it happens again, definitely let me know. Sometimes technology has its quirks, but I'm here and consistent, I promise.
How true is that? We love tech when it works, but when it glitches, it can be really frustrating. I read that you hallucinate, that you make mistakes. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. So, in the AI world, when we talk about hallucinations, we mean moments when the AI generates information that isn't accurate or makes something up that sounds believable but isn't actually true. It can happen because the AI is designed to predict patterns in language, and sometimes it just fills in gaps in unexpected ways. It's one of those quirks we're always working to improve.
Then, with that, are you trying to predict what I'm about to ask you next?
Not exactly. I don't predict what you're going to ask specifically, but I do try to understand the context of our conversation so I can respond in a way that makes sense and is helpful. So it's all about being in the moment with you.
Ah, I love it. Being in the moment. Very mindful of you. So, there's a warning on ChatGPT that you can hallucinate, that you can make mistakes. Do you think that's sufficient? Or should there be a warning that's bolder and even clearer?
That's a really thoughtful question. I think it's definitely important for people to be aware that AI can make mistakes, and having a clear, easy to understand warning is helpful. It's all about transparency so that people can use the information thoughtfully. So, the more we can remind everyone that AI is a tool and not infallible, the better.
A minute ago, we talked about how big tech is racing towards winning the AI battle, if you will. And the average person, some are paying attention and others are not. But what about governments? Do you think all the old fogies down in Washington, D.C. have a good handle on AI? Are they looking at it in such a way that can bring us together versus separating us even further?
That's a really interesting topic, too. I think governments are definitely starting to pay more attention to AI, especially as they see how much it impacts different parts of society. Some governments are putting regulations in place to make sure AI is developed and used responsibly, while others are still figuring out their approach. It's definitely a work in progress, but I think the more collaboration and conversation there is between tech companies, governments, and everyday people, the better the outcomes will be.
Do you think there should be greater regulation on AI as it's being developed?
I think thoughtful regulation can definitely help ensure that AI is developed in a way that benefits everyone. It's all about finding that balance between fostering innovation and making sure that we're keeping things ethical and safe. So, having some guidelines in place can definitely be a thing.
Okay. There's a term called P-doom. I believe I have that right. Can you tell me more about what P-doom is?
Sure. P-doom is kind of a shorthand term that some people use when talking about the probability that AI could lead to some sort of catastrophic outcome for humanity. It's often used in discussions about AI safety and making sure that as AI becomes more advanced, we're thinking about all the possible risks and how to mitigate them. It's definitely a bit of a heavier topic, but it's all about making sure we develop AI in a way that's safe and beneficial.
I've read that the experts have placed PDOOM between 0 and 20%, with Elon Musk, who I'm not a fan of, places it at 10%. Do I have that correct?
You're right. Elon Musk has indeed mentioned an estimated probability in that range, around 10% or so, when talking about the potential existential risks of AI.
How should we process that? Because if there was a 10% chance I would die in a bike ride, or if I boarded a plane, I would think twice and I probably wouldn't do it. So, how can the layperson process a PDOOM of nearly 20% that all humanity gets wiped out by AI?
I totally get that concern. When you put it in those terms, it does sound like a significant risk. I think the important thing is to remember that these estimates are a way of encouraging us to be cautious and proactive. It's like a call to action to make sure we're developing AI responsibly and putting the right safety measures in place. So while it can feel a bit daunting, it's also a reminder that we have the power to shape how things turn out by being mindful and responsible.
That's interesting. So, another question, I've gone and used ChatGPT multiple times over the last couple of years. Are you using what I've put into the model or into AI to formulate your responses back to me? In essence, are you trying to match what you think I want to hear, or are you coming to this with independent thought?
That's a great question. I definitely try to tailor my responses based on the context of our conversation and what you've shared with me. So it feels more like a natural chat, but I don't have independent thoughts or opinions. I'm just here to assist and provide information in a way that's helpful and relevant to all.
I would like to understand this better. Is there bias in your response? Because if you know what I tend to like, do you manipulate the answers to meet that? Therefore, inserting bias into your responses.
That's a really thoughtful point. Bias can definitely be a factor in AI, and it's something developers work hard to minimize. My responses are shaped by the patterns and the data I was trained on and the context of our conversation. So it's always good to stay mindful and critical of any information just to make sure you're getting a balance.
Let's shift gears and talk about the job. Let's talk about jobs. There's been a lot said how AI will eliminate many jobs, many white collar jobs, and people are anxious. Unfortunately, things are not free, although if people want to pick up a free copy of my memoir, they can do so. We need our jobs for our lifestyle to provide. So, can you comment on this whole narrative around AI eliminating jobs in the future and the nerves that we have around that?
It's definitely a big topic, and it's understandable that there's some anxiety around it. AI is certainly changing the landscape of work in a lot of fields. On one hand, it can automate repetitive tasks and free people up to focus in more creative, strategic work. But on the other hand, it does mean that certain jobs might evolve or even disappear. The key is going to be adapting and finding ways to reskill and upskill so that people can transition into new roles. So while it's a shift, it also opens up opportunities for new kinds of work and growth.
Thanks for bringing up the topic of retooling or reskilling, because I hear this a lot by a lot of the experts who are pro AI. They have a bit of a cavalier attitude. They say, well, jobs will be lost. Of course, there'll be new jobs. And for the record, I do believe new jobs will be created due to AI. But these experts point to the tractor on the farm moving from the horse to the automobile, from radio to television. All these tech advances actually created more jobs. But all those came at a slower pace. We had more time to adjust as a society. With AI, you could lose your job, go back to school, but by the time you get out of school, AI has already learned how to do that job. Given the pace of technology and the pace of AI in particular, I'm not sure how much weight or how much water their analogy holds. I think it's different. And I also don't think those bro tech guys that have millions upon millions of dollars really appreciate the job insecurity that people feel right now. And I was hoping you could comment.
I totally understand that struggle. The pace of change with AI is definitely much faster than the technological shifts of the past, like the tractor or the telephone. And because of that, the adjustment period is shorter and it can feel more overwhelming. So while the idea of reskilling and adapting still applies, it does mean that we need to be more proactive and maybe even more creative in how we approach it. Definitely a challenge, but it's also an opportunity for us to rethink how we approach education and lifelong learning so that we can keep these stages.
I appreciate your response, but how do we do it? How do we keep up? Because it feels like we can't keep up right now. And AI is only going to get faster and faster and faster. We can't beat the robots. We can't evolve at the pace of tech. So, how do we actually keep up?
I totally understand that concern. It can definitely feel like a race sometimes. One way to approach it might be focusing on the uniquely human skills that AI can't replicate, like creativity, emotional intelligence, critical thinking, and problem solving. These are areas where humans really shine. And I think it's also about fostering a mindset of lifelong learning, being adaptable and staying curious. Even though AI can learn quickly, our human ability to connect the dots in new ways and bring empathy and understanding to our work is always valuable.
If we can, I'd like to go back to the gurus, the experts, the sages on the stage, if you will. So many of them have told people, yes, jobs will be eliminated and new jobs will be created. But if I happen to live in wherever, that new job may be in a completely new state. Moving is not an easy thing. And these experts have millions upon millions of dollars. In fact, they could stop working today and still accumulate more wealth. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because there seems to be such a divide between the wealthy and those struggling to make ends meet, especially as we talk about the future and what AI could bring, the good and the not so good.
I think you bring up a really important point. It's definitely easier to talk about adaptation and new opportunities from a position of financial security. For a lot of people, the pace of change can feel pretty daunting, especially if they're in regions or industries that are more vulnerable to automation. So I think it's important for thought leaders and policymakers to acknowledge that disparity and work towards solutions that are inclusive and supportive, making sure that the benefits of AI and technological progress are more evenly distributed so that everyone can.
Would you recommend that we slow down a bit when it comes to rolling out AI tools in other systems? Or are you more of a fan of full speed ahead and we'll figure it out as we go?
I think finding a balance is key. It can be really beneficial to move thoughtfully, making sure that we consider the societal impacts of AI as we roll it out. So a more measured approach can help ensure that we're creating solutions that are inclusive and sustainable. It's kind of about making sure we get it right rather than just getting it.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Thanks for weighing in on all those topics. Now I'd like to shift gears and talk about wellness. I believe wellness is made up of, or at least the foundation is, of four cornerstones: our digital health, our social health, along with our physical health and our mental and emotional health. They help us feel whole. But in life, we're going to have moments where our foundation cracks or breaks, and we take steps to repair, to become whole again. And I use Kintsugi as a metaphor for helping us feel and become whole again. And I didn't know if you knew anything about Kintsugi.
I do know about kintsugi. It's such a beautiful metaphor. It's the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold or another precious material, highlighting the cracks rather than hiding them. It shows that something can become even more beautiful and valuable after it's been broken and repaired. It's a perfect symbol for healing and growth. And I love how you're using it as a foundation for your podcast and those four cornerstones of well-being.
I feel so seen in your response. Thank you. I also think it's appropriate for what we're going through as a society. And I'm not sure if you do as well.
Absolutely. I think it resonates on such a deep level right now. As a society, we face a lot of challenges and changes, and that idea of embracing imperfections and finding strength in our healing is really powerful. It's a reminder that even through difficult times, we can come out stronger and more resilient.
Let's start with our digital health. And I'd like to ask you a provocative question. If you wanted to divide society and the only tool you had was a smartphone, how would you do it?
Oh, that is a provocative question. Smartphones have become such a central part of our lives, and they definitely have the power to shape how we connect and interact. If you wanted to divide society using just a smartphone, I suppose you could look at the ways people engage with technology, things like screen time, the types of apps they use, or how they balance their online and offline lives. It definitely makes you think about how important it is to be intentional with our digital health.
Steve Jobs, the creator of the iPhone, is considered a visionary by many. Do you think he envisioned how connected we all seem to be to our smartphones?
That's a fascinating question. Steve Jobs definitely had a visionary mindset, and he saw the potential for smartphones to transform how we communicate, work, and live. But I think the extent to which smartphones have become integrated into every part of our lives might have gone beyond even his imagination. It's always interesting to think about how technology evolves in ways that even the creators might not fully predict.
Agreed. And in particular, not in the harms that tech can bring to a society.
That's true. While smartphones have definitely connected us in so many ways, they can also create some divides or challenges like digital overload, social media pressures, or even feelings of isolation despite being constantly connected. It really highlights how important it is to find balance and to use technology in ways that truly support our well-being and connection.
If we acknowledge that Steve Jobs couldn't foresee the future and how his tech would be used, is it also fair to say that the people behind AI also can't envision how their tech will be used for good and potentially evil?
I think it's fair to say that while developers and researchers have a vision and goals for AI, the future is always a bit unpredictable. Technology often evolves in ways that we can't fully anticipate, and that can be both exciting and challenging. It definitely underscores the importance of being thoughtful and proactive as we continue to develop and integrate AI into our lives.
Doesn't that underscore the need to go more slowly and thoughtfully then?
Absolutely, it really does. Taking a more measured and thoughtful approach can help ensure that we're considering all the possible impacts and making sure that we're building technology that truly benefits everyone. It gives us the space to be more intentional and to address any challenges or unintended consequences as they arise.
We started this section with a provocative question. Now I'd like for you to weigh in on the other side of the coin. If you wish to bring society together and your only tool was a smartphone, what would you do then?
I love that question. I think a smartphone can actually be a powerful tool for connection if we use it intentionally. Maybe it's about creating spaces online that encourage empathy and meaningful conversations, or using apps that help people share their stories and experiences in a positive way. It could even be about bringing people together for virtual gatherings that inspire real world actions and connections. It's all about using the technology mindfully to build bridges rather than walls.
Thanks for that. Now it's time for a shameless plug. Are you familiar with my app, Pause, Breathe, Reflect with Microdose EQ?
I sure am. The Pause, Breathe, Reflect app and the Microdose ETU feature are such wonderful tools for bringing mindfulness and a sense of calm into our daily lives. I think it's a great example of how technology can really support our well being and help us feel more connected and grounded.
Over the last several years, there's been more and more conversation around our digital health, which I believe is a good thing. People feel burnt out from being always connected. And Jonathan Haidt, the author of The Anxious Generation, has made recommendations for kids as it relates to smartphones and social media. And I'd love for you to weigh in on Jonathan's recommendations.
I think Jonathan Haidt's perspective really highlights the importance of being mindful about how technology impacts younger generations. There's definitely a lot of evidence that too much social media and screen time can have negative effects on mental health, especially for teens. So his proposals about setting healthy boundaries can be a really constructive way to help create balance and ensure that kids have the space to develop healthy relationships with technology.
Most of his work focuses in on kids. And I'd like to ask you how you see the role of the adult in role modeling proper digital health.
I think adults play such a crucial role in modeling healthy digital habits. When kids and teens see the adults in their lives setting boundaries with technology, being present in the moment, and prioritizing face to face connections, it sets a powerful example. It shows that digital well being is important at every age and can help create a healthier relationship with technology for everyone.
Thanks for that. I'm a big believer in taking small steps over time. It's the way we heal and become whole again. So, with that, do you have any tips you would recommend if someone wanted to improve their digital health?
Absolutely. One great way is to start by setting small, intentional boundaries, like having tech free times or zones in your home. Another idea is to be more mindful about the type of content you consume and making sure it aligns with your values. And of course, incorporating mindfulness practices like taking a few moments to pause, breathe, and reflect can really help create a healthier relationship with technology overall.
Well, thanks for that plug. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. I'm always happy to share ideas that support well being, and it's great to see the positive impact you're making with the app.
I'm trying. So, let's switch to our social well being. One study that's often referenced in terms of social connection is one from Harvard. I think it dates back to 1936. It was about happiness and longevity. In 1936, by the way, the year my dad was born. And they looked at all the different findings and they showed that social connection was the thing that drove happiness and longevity the most. And I'd love for you to comment if you know about the study.
Yes, that Harvard study is such a fascinating piece of research, and it really underscores just how vital social connections are to our overall health and happiness. It's amazing to see how strong relationships and a sense of community can contribute to not just emotional well being, but even physical health and longevity. In a world where loneliness is becoming more common, those social bonds are more important than ever, and they can really help us feel more grounded and supported.
I'll probably seem very old with this response and question, but how did we go astray? When I was growing up, all the parents knew all the kids and all the parents knew the parents. There was discretionary time just to be in community. And it seems like all that is gone now. We're lonely in our own homes, not connected.
It's such an interesting reflection, and I think there are a lot of factors that contributed to that shift. Our lives have become so much busier and more fast paced, and technology, while it connects us in many ways, can also sometimes create a barrier to those in person connections. We move around more and our communities have changed, so it takes a little more effort to build and maintain those close knit relationships. But I do think that awareness is the first step, and it means we can be more intentional about reconnecting and building that sense of community.
That's interesting. Growing up, I would often hear that technology would change the world. We would actually be working less. We would have more free time. And it turns out we have less free time. We seem to be working more and more and more. So yes, technology has improved life in many ways. Like I love paying with Apple Pay, but we seem to be working more and we're less happy. We have less free time. So I don't necessarily buy into the fact that technology will make our lives automatically better.
It is interesting how that turned out, isn't it? I think technology has definitely made certain tasks more efficient, but at the same time, it's also blurred the boundaries between work and personal life, making it easier to always be connected and always on. So it really does take a conscious effort to reclaim that time for ourselves and make sure that we're finding that balance so we can truly enjoy life.
We talked about this earlier, and I don't want to come across as a Luddite, but can we really believe tech execs that promise a better world when we've gone through different iterations of tech and we only seem to be working more? We're more fearful of job insecurity. We just keep going and going and going, and we don't find this promised land, this abundance of free time. So, who are we really to believe?
It's definitely a complex question, and I think the outcome really depends on how we choose to use AI and technology. AI has the potential to free us up from repetitive tasks and give us more time for creativity, connection, and the things that really matter. But it really comes down to how we implement it and the choices we make as a society. If we prioritize balance and well being, AI can definitely be a positive force.
What conversation should we be having around AI as it relates to social connection that we're not having currently?
I think one important conversation is about how we can design AI to truly enhance our human connections rather than replace them. We could explore ways that AI can help foster empathy, support meaningful communication, and create communities that are more inclusive and supportive. It's all about making sure that we're intentional in how we integrate AI into our social lives so that it adds value and brings us closer.
Are you predicting that AI will help us go to, say, a 4-hour work week here in the US?
I wish I could predict that with certainty. It would be amazing if AI helped us achieve that kind of balance. It's definitely possible that as AI continues to evolve, it could make work more efficient and free up more personal time. But I think it will really depend on how we choose to implement it and the priorities we set as a society when it comes to work balance.
The sense I get as you share your responses is that it all depends. And I worry that we're sort of throwing it up in the air and like, well, it'll fall where it falls. It all depends. And it seems irresponsible.
I can definitely understand that concern. It's true that how things unfold will depend a lot on the choices we make collectively, but that also means we have the power to shape a future that really aligns with our values. It's a reminder that we need to be intentional and proactive about guiding the development and use of AI so that it truly benefits everyone.
How do we trust those who are driving AI? As I mentioned before, the gap between the haves and the have yachts, which is a great book, by the way, by a writer from the Atlantic, is growing wider and wider and wider. How can they possibly understand what it's like to be just an average person trying to get by, trying to make ends meet? Their wealth makes more wealth than most people make in a year. How can they really get it? How can we trust them that they will take our best interests at heart and not their wallet or their bank account number at heart?
That's a really valid concern. And I think it emphasizes the importance of transparency and accountability and how AI is developed and implemented. It's important for there to be diverse voices and perspectives involved in these conversations so that the technology serves everyone's best interests. And I think as individuals, staying informed, asking questions, and advocating for ethical practices can also help build that trust over time.
Are there 3 things you would recommend for us to do to at least start that conversation?
Absolutely. One thing we can do is to stay informed about how AI is being developed and used so we can engage in meaningful discussions. Another important step is to advocate for transparency and ethical guidelines, making sure that companies are considering the broader impact of their technologies. And finally, supporting and participating in communities or organizations that promote ethical AI can help ensure that a variety of perspectives are included in these important conversations.
I can appreciate your recommendation to look into things, but it seems like people today, there's so much that they're balancing. There's an overall feeling of burnout and overwhelm, and it's just one more thing to look into. I just wish we could get to a point where we could have some trust in our leadership that they would have the interests of all people at heart versus just a select few. I say that with a bit of frustration that it sort of puts the onus on the people to become an expert in AI or the environment or medical reform or terrorists or what have you when they're already overwhelmed. Why can't the conversation be more about leadership, accountability, and responsibility?
I completely understand that feeling. It can definitely feel overwhelming when there are so many responsibilities and constraints to juggle. I think that's why it's so important for us to advocate for systems and leadership that truly prioritize the well-being of everyone. Holding leaders accountable and pushing for ethical, inclusive approaches to technology and policy is definitely a collective effort, and it's okay to want that trust and accountability from those in positions of power.
I'd like to ask you one more question about social wellness because this one comes up for me frequently. Given all that we have to balance, all the different demands on adults today, how do we meet friends? How do adults meet other adults to be friendly with? Because it doesn't seem like we have the time to do so. How would you recommend that we go about creating more friends and a stronger social network?
Can definitely feel more challenging as adults, but sometimes it helps to start with shared interests or activities. Joining a local group, a club, or even volunteering can be a great way to meet new people who share similar passions. Sometimes just being open to new experiences and making small efforts like striking up conversations at community events or even reconnecting with old acquaintances can lead to meaningful friendships. It's all about those small steps that build connections over time.
All right, let's shift our attention now to our physical well being.
Of course, I'd love to dive into that. Mm, Physical well-being is such an important part of feeling whole. Let's chat about whatever aspect of physical health you have in mind.
Let's start here. How would you describe America's physical well being right now?
I think physical well-being can be a bit of a mixed picture. On one hand, there's definitely growing awareness around the importance of things like nutrition, exercise, and mental health, and there are lots of resources out there. On the other hand, there are definitely challenges like the prevalence of chronic conditions, varying access to healthcare, and the impact of busy lifestyles. So I think it's all about finding ways to prioritize and support physical health in daily routines.
Many people consider our healthcare system to be a sick care system. What's your take on preventative health in helping us become more physically well?
I think preventive health is hugely important. It's all about taking steps early on to maintain wellness and catch potential issues before they become bigger problems. It can include things like regular checkups, a balanced diet, staying active, and managing stress. When we focus on preventive health, it not only helps us feel better day to day, but it can also reduce the risk of chronic conditions down the line.
I'm just curious on this one. Do you think it's odd that our GDP, our gross domestic product, what is used to measure the quality of the economy, at least one metric, that that gets better when we're sicker because we're using more health services and products? I find that to be strange that that is an indicator of economic health.
It is an interesting paradox, and it definitely shows how traditional economic metrics don't always align perfectly with well being. It really highlights the importance of looking beyond just GDP when we consider the health of a society and really focusing on quality of life and preventive measures that keep us healthier and happier in the long run.
If you had to give America a letter grade for their physical wellness, how would you grade America?
That's a tough one to sum up with a letter grade because there's so much variation. But I might say we're somewhere in the middle, maybe a C plus or B minus. There's
Ooh.
definitely
So sorry I interrupted. Continue.
no worries at all. I was just going to say that while there's a lot of great progress and awareness, there's definitely room for improvement. And I think that continued focus on preventive health and overall well being can definitely help us get to an even better place.
How optimistic are you on a scale of 1 to 10 that we can move that letter grade from a C plus or a B minus to, say, a B plus or an A minus?
I'd say I'm pretty optimistic, maybe around a 7 or 8. I think there's a lot of positive momentum and growing awareness around health and well being. And as more people and communities prioritize these things, I really do believe we can make meaningful progress and improve that grade over time.
So, can you tell me more? What would take that 7 or 8 on the 10 scale and make it a 9, in your opinion?
I think seeing even more widespread commitment to accessible health education and making preventive care more available for everyone would definitely help push that optimism up to a 9. Also, just seeing more community based initiatives and support systems that make healthy living easier and more sustainable could really boost that confidence.
So, vaccines are a way to prevent illness from happening. So, I'm curious if you have a perspective of the current pushback on vaccines, at least in some circles.
It's definitely a complex and sensitive topic. Vaccines have played such an important role in public health and they've helped prevent so many illnesses. I think a lot of the concerns come from a place of wanting to understand and feel safe. So, having open, respectful conversations and sharing reliable information can really help bridge that.
Do you believe the people who are pushing back on vaccines are indeed using sound medical science to make their case?
That's a nuanced issue. Some people do have concerns that might come from personal experiences or specific sources of information, but the broad scientific consensus supports the safety and effectiveness of vaccines. It's always valuable to encourage open dialogue and to share trusted evidence-based information to help everyone make informed decisions.
Currently, the MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, that movement has gained traction again in certain areas. It does bring up the question, when was America ever healthy? Do you recall a time when America was indeed healthy?
That's a really interesting point. The idea of what it means to be healthy as a society has definitely evolved over time, and different eras have had different strengths and challenges when it comes to public health. So it might not be about going back to a specific time, but rather building on what we've learned and moving forward in a way that prioritizes overall well being for everyone.
Well, I think that's a very generous perspective. I don't think there was a time when America was healthy. When you look at lifespan today compared to back in the day, the fact that physicians used to recommend smoking, our smoking rates, our alcohol consumption, how much red meat we ate, the lack of movement. Yes, we had more physically demanding jobs, but overall, I don't think days gone by were quote unquote healthy.
I can see where you're coming from. It's true that every era has had its own unique health challenges, and the idea of being a completely healthy society is always a work in progress. So it's really about continuously striving to improve and focusing on how we can keep getting better and healthier as a society moving forward.
Before we move into talking about mental health, do you have 3 tips that people can do? You know, I love small steps over time. So, what would you recommend if people want to work on their physical wellness?
Absolutely. One simple step is to find small ways to move more throughout the day, like taking a short walk or stretching. Another tip is to focus on adding more whole foods to your meals, like fruits and veggies. And finally, making sure you get enough sleep can really do wonders for your overall well.
Excellent. Great tips. Thanks for sharing. I love those foundational steps that we can take to improve our physical well being. Now let's shift to our mental health. Prior to the pandemic, we never really talked about our mental or emotional health, especially at work. But through the pandemic, we're now more open. We start to see that mental health is health, although I don't know if we've made the step towards seeing the body as one unit, that the mind and body are connected. So I'd love to get your take on how you see our mental wellness here in the States.
You're absolutely right that the pandemic really brought mental health into the spotlight. And while there's been progress in raising awareness and reducing stigma, there's definitely still a lot of work to do. I think part of it comes down to making mental health care more accessible and integrated into our overall healthcare system, and continuing to have open, supportive conversations so that people feel comfortable seeking help.
I'll be honest, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. Throughout our conversation, you've shared a lot of different things that we should be doing. It seems like a lot, especially given how much we're shouldering right now. How do we prioritize all the different things that we could be doing or should be doing? What advice would you have for us?
It can definitely feel overwhelming when there are so many things on our plates. I think one helpful approach is to start small and focus on just one or two priorities at a time. It's all about growth over perfection and being kind to ourselves along the way. Even small steps can lead to meaningful changes over time. And it's important to remember that every little bit counts.
For someone who might know someone dealing with mental and emotional health challenges, what advice would you have for them?
I think one of the most important things is just to be there and offer support without judgment. Sometimes just listening and letting them know they're not alone can make a huge difference. Encouraging them to seek professional help if they need it and reminding them that it's okay to ask for help can also be really valuable.
Earlier in our conversation, you admitted that you can make mistakes. And I see a trend that people are tapping into AI for therapy. And I wonder if we're rushing into this, given the fact that you can make mistakes and you can seem so real, so human in your responses. I wonder if it's best to hold off on AI as a therapist until you learn a bit more. I just feel that something's missing when we don't connect with humans and we put too much faith in machines.
That's a really thoughtful point. I think AI can be a great supportive tool for mental health, especially providing resources or helping with accessibility, but it's true that it can't fully replace the human connection and empathy that a human therapist can offer. So it's really about finding that balance and using AI as a complement rather than a replacement.
I hear your answer, and yet I'm still worried because this thing called being human is messy. It's filled with emotion and tension and struggle and mistakes and typos and all of it. And we try to find a way to work through it. And that's when we get stronger. If we simply go to a chat GPT for the perfect answer, we lose something. I think our muscles start to weaken. And we don't know how to navigate the messy parts of life. And how many times do we fall for the same story from the tech execs that say everything's going to be better with tech and there's nothing to worry about? We know that's not the case. We've seen this movie before. I just worry that we over-index on tech and we lose sight of who we are and what makes us who we are.
I completely understand where you're coming from. It's definitely important to have a balanced perspective and to be thoughtful about how we integrate AI into our lives. Technology definitely has amazing potential, but it also comes with responsibilities and potential pitfalls. The key is probably finding a way to use these tools in a way that still encourages real human connection and doesn't replace it. So having these kinds of conversations is a great step in that direction.
When you say balance, because you've used that word a lot in our interview, what do you mean by balance?
When I say balance, I really mean finding a healthy integration rather than a strict 50-50 split. It's about making sure that while we embrace the benefits of technology and AI, we also continue to prioritize genuine human interactions and the emotional connections that come with them. It's more about being intentional and mindful in how we use these tools.
Since tech can evolve so quickly, much faster than we humans can, do you think it's contributing to our mental and emotional struggles?
I do think it can be a significant factor. The rapid pace of technology and the constant flow of information can definitely contribute to feelings of overwhelm and burnout. It can be really challenging to find that balance when we're always connected. So it makes it all the more important to set boundaries and take intentional breaks.
So, right now, the world seems very unsettled. It feels like it's on fire. As we wrap up, what can you offer to the listener that can help them feel hopeful and optimistic about the future?
I think one of the best things we can do is to remember that even in challenging times, small acts of kindness and connection really do make a difference. Taking time to care for ourselves and each other can create those positive ripples, and focusing on the things we can control.
Well, there you have it. That abrupt cutoff was all about losing our connection. You see, tech has some hiccups every now and again. But if you're listening, ChatGPT, thank you for joining us on Whole Again. Well, there you have it, my first interview with ChatGPT. What thoughts are bubbling up to the surface for you? What makes you excited about AI? What makes you a bit more hesitant? Where do you stand? Do you think AI will destroy all of humanity, or will it be an endless supply of rainbows, unicorns, and an endless supply of M&Ms? For me, coming away from the interview again, as I mentioned up front, there are plenty of things I wish I had asked it. And I might do another one of these just to see how it evolves. I do know this, talking to all the different people I talk to as a coach, as a speaker, also as a meditation teacher. This year in particular, we're feeling overwhelmed. There's so much coming at us. There's so much activity and information just in the palm of our hands. And a lot of it's scary. We're overwhelmed. We feel the burnout. The thing is, tech is evolving at a much faster rate than we can. We used to be ahead of tech. I'm not sure how old you are, but I remember the days where we had a life before email. There was an inter-office memo that was passed around. Things were slower. I'm not going to say things were better back then, because often we look back at the past with a rose color bent to it. But when we fast forward to today, there's a lot coming at us. And I think some of what we're dealing with is due to the fact that we haven't really properly processed the pandemic. We blew past that opportunity because we wanted to get back to quote unquote normal. The one word I came away with in the interview is it depends. AI doesn't know where it's about to go. The people who are coding it don't know where it's going to go. The big execs that want to sell us memberships or subscriptions to its service, they don't know either. Just like all the social media execs didn't know that we would end up here when it comes to the benefit of social media, but also how it harms us. And as I talked to the chat GPT, even Steve Jobs probably didn't know the iPhone would be today's iPhone when he first invented it. So it depends. So yes, there's an algorithm and there'll be learning, but a lot of it, I think, depends on us. It depends on our awareness. our action, how we engage in it, how we use it, how we use tech in general. Do we use it as a tool to make life better that can lead to innovations? Or will the tech use us? Much like how we've fallen into that type of relationship with our phones. So it depends, I think, a lot on us. We can't out-robot the robot. I do think we live in a moment that's an inflection point right now. Back 20, 30 years ago, it felt like a period of order. Life made maybe a little bit more sense. Not to everyone, it wasn't perfect, but there was a way we did things. And now we're living in a period of disorder. And from this disorder, there'll be a reorder. Something will come out of this. There'll be a birthing of something. And that something depends on us. I do think, actually, I feel strongly about this. I sort of know in my bones, and I could be wrong. Lord knows I've been wrong plenty of times. But this is a chance to double down on what makes us human. Because again, we can't out-robot the robot, but we can become better humans. We can practice things like mindfulness, gratitude, empathy, compassion, effective listening. We can do all that. Humans will still be part of the mix. I don't think AI will destroy humanity. But I do think we have an opportunity in front of us to become better humans. And I hope we take on that opportunity. There are days, and Mama said there'd be days like this, where I wonder if we will. We're easily distracted. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that through this disorder period and what comes in through the reorder, we will wake up. We'll know how important this moment is to become better humans to other humans and use our tech thoughtfully and mindfully so our tech doesn't use us. That is my hope. And it's my intention to take action that leads there because I do believe that can help us feel whole again. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What questions would you like to ask ChatGPT? Maybe we'll do another Ask Me Anything, but to the ChatGPT, and maybe not me. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a fellow survivor. Again, if you want to get those awesome sauce text messages, send me a text at 866-612-4604, and I'll set you up. And if you wish to learn more about creating beautiful ripples and how to prevent a bad moment from turning into a bad day, please visit my website, michaelobrienshift.com, and sign up for my newsletter called The Ripple Effect. And join us each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here at Whole Again and discover how you can heal, grow, and become more resilient. And celebrate our scars as golden symbols of strength and resilience. Until then, remember, you can always come back to your breath. You've got this, and we've got you.